Jesus didn't have a problem with people that's in the streets. He had a problem with religious people.
How can I help anybody when I was not even able to help my own son?
I would never do that. And I became that in a matter of minutes when they took my pain pills away.
And I said, I'm not where I want to be, but thank God I'm not what I used to be.
This is Faith in Your Recovery. I am Randy Davis. Welcome to the battle. Once again, we're thrilled and excited to be with you, and we're even happier that you're with us. So we just hope you'll be comfortable, you'll listen in, you'll be able to take something away from this experience, from this interview, this podcast, maybe you haven't picked up on before. Maybe it'll be the key. Maybe it'll unlock the door you need to take that next step in your recovery. Here at Faith in Your Recovery, we make every effort to be raw, to be real, and to talk about all things recovery. And that's what we're going to be about today with our guest. Our guest today from the Anderson area here, Mr. Sean Harris. Welcome, Sean.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, it's good to have you with us. We're excited to hear your story. I don't know how often you've shared it or what that's been about, but we're going to know after a while here, so just feel free to give us what you got. Somebody out there is going to relate more ways than one.
Absolutely. I've given my story a few times within my recovery, sobriety. But it's always my pleasure to try and share and reach out to others and give back what was so freely given to me.
Yeah, that's what we want to hear from you. You talk about your recovery. How long have you been in recovery?
September the 6th of 2019, approximately, I'm going to say 1,251 days.
Approximately, but who's counting?
Who's counting?
Yeah, I like that. Good guess. All right.
It is at 4 o'clock, so we.
That's cool. That's cool. What was your drug of choice prior to that getting clean?
Alcohol was my main choice of drug, and then, as they say, alcohol is a drug.
Yes. I try to be careful and not always say alcohol and drugs because it's a slash instead of an and.
Exactly.
One will do as much damage as the other depending on your condition and your use, yes?
Exactly.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that here. So when did it all begin for you? No, better yet, tell me about Sean as a young person, where you lived, what life was about, your family. Share with the folks.
Okay. I was born and raised on the south side of Chicago. I was raised by a single parent. My dad left when I was approximately 2 years old. And coming up on the streets of Chicago, basically my mom, she worked nights to keep a roof over our head. So we went to the babysitters a lot. After going to our babysitters approximately couple years, it was found out that we were being abused in our babysitters, so we were pulled out. My grandmother used to watch us. And then from there, we as we got older, we got to start staying home. There was 4 of us, and we would stay home. My oldest brother was 15 then, so he would watch us. And my mom, she would work from 3 p.m. She would leave for work. She would get home at 2:30 in the morning. She was a waitress at the same restaurant for 35 years. Okay. And as we got older, I just started turning towards the streets when I'm 15 and 16 years old. All of us pretty much joined gangs for the attention and respect and protection. And we didn't know anything much better than that, than just trying to hang out and make things happen in the neighborhood and the gangs and alcohol came in back then. That was a thing of hanging out and drinking, as we say, drinking on the corner. And
yeah. Was that pretty much the norm for others round about you?
That was the norm. Even going to, up to 8th grade, we'd get out of school and find someone that would go in there, and as we would call, cop us a 40 ounce and to give it to you real.
Yeah.
And we would sit there and drink, and that was a way of getting. I didn't know what stress was back then, but that was my way of getting rid of stress.
Okay, so the anxieties, everything within you, even if you couldn't label them, doesn't mean you didn't have them, right?
Exactly, and I wasn't your average gangbanger. My street name was Mr. Peabody.
Why was that? Based on Mr. Peabody from the cartoons?
Yeah, based on my big glasses that I used to always wear.
I like that. Yes, I like that. I'm trying to see it in you. I can see it a little only because you mentioned it, okay? I'll bet you wish you had his old Wayback Machine. You remember that? Transporting back in time? Yeah.
And then that's the, and then my oldest brother had, a much more street name. And, I was able to keep grades good up until 8th grade. So that kind of added to the Mr. Peabody thing.
Makes sense.
It went from that to Professor.
Okay.
And then it was Professor Peabody. That's what I ended up with.
All right.
Yeah.
That's not one of them I read a lot about. Okay? You've already shared. You mentioned early in life, did you suffer abuse yourself through that babysitter?
I did. We were, we were made to sit in the front room on the hard floor when we got in trouble and just watch the TV for 7 hours at a time. We can get up and come have lunch. And I didn't like spinach. And I couldn't stand the texture. And every time I didn't eat it, she would just put it in the refrigerator and bring it out for the next meal. And there was a time that I regurgitated it and was made to eat it again. So the abuse was there. It was mental.
Yes.
It was very extremely mental.
Well,
my sister got it physically, and my other brother Keith got it physically.
Okay. I can't imagine the anxieties, as we said earlier, everything that created those adverse experiences. I never liked spinach either, but I never had it forced on me. Yeah. So to this day, I don't want the spinach from can. I'll take the leaf spinach. I can deal with that. But, yeah.
Well, there's some cycles you have to break, and I've learned how to eat it now.
Congratulations. All right.
I absolutely did. And, the psychological, mental part was every time my mom didn't have a choice but to send us to a babysitter. So,
Makes sense.
The thing is we knew we didn't want to go, and we cried out for the help, but she had no choice because she was a single parent, and she kept a roof over our head, though.
Well, hooray for her.
Absolutely.
Sorry she couldn't have done something else because I'll bet she would have.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And had she known earlier, she would have pulled us out.
Okay. So you took us up to kind of the 8th grade level. Your grades were doing okay, and that's when you started getting involved in negative ways with folks who, you've already said it, you found a place of acceptance. Mm-hmm. We hear that all the time with addiction. And whether you call yourself a product of addiction or in recovery, we all want to be accepted. And we will find a way to be, and many times through our behavior. So tell us about that, the gang time.
Yeah, the acceptance and the friend part. You wanted to have friends. You wanted to feel loved. And it wasn't that my mom didn't love me.
Sure.
It wasn't that she had to work 6 days a week, if not 7. So we wanted that feeling of acceptance. And when it comes to acceptance, you want to feel love. And I have friends that I call best friends. I look back at them now, and I wouldn't even say that. I would still say that they're my best friends because they took me in at a time when I was looking for that love, and actually, their parents. But when it came to moving to the streets and the gangs and then the drinking and other things, it was like that togetherness. Because my brothers would go one way, and I was, 2 years younger than my oldest brother, so he had his friends, and my middle brother, he had his friends, and then I had mine.
Yeah. And I'm going to guess you didn't know what their home life was like, the kind of possible abuse or experiences they were having. They may have been suffering the same pains you were, and whether you guys could verbalize it or not, or were willing to for the fear of just everything that goes with that, you found a connectedness.
Yeah, I did. I found a connectedness. But one thing I did notice about certain friends that I had in my life that I call my best friends, they had two parents. And that made kind of a difference, you know. And when it came to all of us just hanging out and you know, dealing with turf wars and things like that, I noticed that they had parents that would call them in the house when the lights came on, whereas, you know, we didn't have that, you know, because she had to be at work. And what I would do is when I knew it was time for her to get off the bus, because she took CTA, Chicago Transit Authority, there at home, I would hurry up and run home, and I would climb in bed, and she would come in and smell my breath to see if it smelled like alcohol. And then I would get woke up by my father, who would come, you know, 2 hours away to punish me.
Okay. So tell us some more about your early experiences, and then moving forward with alcohol. What it did to your life, how it affected you, just how that worked.
Well, in fact, you know, basically I turned to alcohol to release pain, and it gave me a no care in the world feeling. I didn't worry about so much when I was drinking. I didn't worry about, you know, what neighborhood I was going over, or, you know, how late I was staying out, and what bullet is going to fly past me next. But also I didn't think about my home life either, you know, as much, because, you know, I see now what I didn't have then, and I think about it is, you know, I really did want two parents, and when I looked at other families, and I, you know, just turning to the alcohol, it comforted me, and that's what I knew because all my friends done it, you know, and it just, I had that comfort feeling. I had that, you know, okay, well, I feel better now. Whatever was bothering me, it went away when I would drink, and
it became that Band-Aid for the moment.
It was a huge Band-Aid.
Gave you some peace and comfort, even if it was negative comfort in the sense, at least it was taking you away from your pain.
It was.
Folks, I'm not applauding the alcohol or alcoholism, but we're just trying to understand it and hear from Sean how it worked in his life. Go ahead.
And, you know, because it was so much we had to watch out for out there on the streets. And you know, by not having that worrying feeling and the anxiety all the time, and the suppressed hurt from past things, you know, it led to just more and more drinking. And it was the cheapest thing out there. You know, it was mind altering. And you don't think of mind altering then. You know, I didn't think of the future, the toll that it would take on me. I just, you know, as I knew it was kind of getting me in trouble, because, you know, being picked up, you know, by the law here and there.
Right?
It didn't take long at all.
Yes. We had somebody here we interviewed in the last week or two, and they said before doing what you're about to do, play the tape through. Mm-hmm. And of course, at 14, 16, you're not going to do that, especially when you're almost born into it due to the area, conditions, environment, and everything else. You're not going to play that tape through. You're just going to take care of the moment. Sometimes you just have to survive the moment. And we do that in the best of ways and the worst of ways.
We do. At any given time, I mean, you know, I can't count on two hands how many friends I've seen go down from gunshots. And the ones that didn't make it. And, we don't think that those pains hurt us then, but those were the pains that I'm talking about. Those are the ones, because those were individuals that we hung out with. And the more that we went, the more that I went through seeing that, the more I indulged in mind-altering substances.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm going to guess that being involved as you were, you didn't want to show a weakness. You didn't want to show the pain of a friend going down due to a bullet or that friend dying. You had to stand above that and man up, however that would have worked at that time. Is that accurate?
That is very accurate. There was no weakness on the streets. It was called retaliation. And anyone in their right state of mind, to be honest with you, I can't really say that I've ever retaliated just because I didn't like a person. It was because I just felt that that's what was supposed to be done.
Kind of an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, life for a life kind of thing.
Exactly. And there, a sign of weakness, you're not,
that's
you would never make it. I mean, you had to get your first tattoo when you was 15. So
yeah, that initiation, that proof of belonging and whatnot. I come from rural Indiana, and I mean country Indiana, okay? I've never had to go through something that you go through in a large city. Be it Chicago, Indianapolis, the list goes on forever. But to hear stories like this, and please, folks, I'm not trying to demean anyone. I'm trying to understand it. You just become a product, as I've already said, of that environment. And whether it's against your will or not, you still want to see tomorrow, so you do what you've got to do. And wow, so...
And you don't think of the consequences. Consequences don't run across your mind when you have to protect yourself for that day or that night. There were a lot of crazy things that I've looked back on, and I can't believe that I've done or I was about to do. When I say I was about to do it, it wasn't because I thought it through. It was because something went wrong, and it took that moment away. And I think back to where I may not be sitting here today had it went through.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Did you at one point or multiple points have a fear for your life? Or did you
That was almost every night. There were very stressful times where we had turf, may I say turf wars. There were multiple times where retaliation was coming on our part, back to us. There was so many times that, I had trips to the hospital where I just, I really didn't know what happened until I woke up the next morning, but fearing for your life was on a daily basis. That's, it really didn't pick and choose its choice of day. 7 days a week was.
So you couldn't let your guard down at any point.
No.
So that anxiety had to continue to climb, and with that, the drinking elevates. The bigger the pain, the bigger the bottle, I'm going to guess.
Absolutely. Daily basis, every day. That was our main, that was the main goal before you started. It started as soon as the bell rung at 3:30. You went, dropped your book bag off. You was hitting the streets at 4.
Wow.
You were heading up to the nearest little corner liquor store, and then started from there.
So was school a safe place, or at least a safer place than once you got home?
School was safe. It wasn't too bad. There was a lot of fights after school in the playground area. I mean, up till 8th grade, and our school went from kindergarten to 8th grade on the south side. And, it was somewhat protected. I mean, we've had incidents before come up there, but I felt more protected there than I did, when I would come out in the evening time. Yeah. So that we did have, a little more protection than it was on the streets.
Yeah.
And when it came to, when we would hang out and drink at that age, I mean, there was a lot of things you had to watch out for, and one of them was hangovers because you had to do work the next day. So we, the real heavy things didn't start till high school.
Okay. My wife was a teacher for 41 years, rural community, small town. Her principal one time made it clear our main goal is to get our children here safely, feed them lunch, return them safely. And it wasn't because of bullets flying around. It was just the conditions of the world. And with the extra challenges and the obstacles, I believe you're here for a purpose today, okay? That
Absolutely.
God pulled you through that.
Yes, he did. I mean, there was plenty of challenges. I mean, like I said, once that bell rung, it could be a free-for-all for multiple reasons. I mean, we were only blocks away from an opposite gang, or we were only blocks away from, someone retaliating. So at any given time, it could happen. I mean, there was plenty of times we've gotten off, and because we had to walk home from school, it was approximately 4 blocks from our home. And
Along 4 blocks.
Yeah, it could be a very long 4 blocks at any given day.
Yeah.
And we walked in groups.
Sure. Okay, let's go on then from the 8th grade. You've started into your gang involvement. You're becoming a part of that. You said you had to get that tattoo at 15.
At 15.
That passage, that rite of passage. Tell us how it progressed from there.
Progression was, it wasn't hard. Just, we just had to, once you got the tattoo and once we were, my brother, which he wouldn't mind, he was sort of a leader. So a lot of individuals respected myself, my sister, and my brother Keith. It was all about, I want to say hustling, and it really was. It was all about, getting the money to get the next drink. High school, I was kicked out at my sophomore year. And it was just due to never wanting to go. All I wanted to do was hang out and gangbang. And then when we did go to school, it was hard because, you had to get on a city bus. You had to fight that gang on the bus. You had to fight to get off the bus. You had to fight to wait on the next bus. And by the time you made it to school, you were so tired. You wasn't. Education wasn't in there, and with the strict rules of the locking of the doors. If you weren't there by 7:30 a.m., they were locking all the doors. That was to keep the school protected. It just I couldn't.
It didn't seem worth it at the moment. Took too much out of you.
It really didn't. It was the longest travel in the world to get there and the longest travel in the world to get home. So
during those high school years, I'm going to guess that your drinking escalated.
Absolutely. It was definitely on a daily basis.
What kind of quantities?
By then, we moved from the little 40 ounces of beers. Now we were drinking the old, it was back in the day, the hard stuff, but very cheap. It was $1.98 for a fifth of night train, 50, things like that. It was the cheapest wine out there, but it get you drunk the fastest.
Get the job done.
Get the job done, and the more the better. And it just never stopped. Though there was like no ending. When that one was gone, it was time to get up on the next one, and when that one was gone, it was time to get up on the next one until before you know it, you were. It was just a never-ending thing. Plenty of nights by that time I wasn't going home at night. I remember, well, right around that time is when my brother took his life due to addiction, alcoholism. He was a big alcoholic.
How old were you at that time?
I was 16.
And he was how much older
He was
than you?
18.
He was a couple years older than
He
you.
had just finished
took his own life because the addiction had just destroyed his life.
Yeah, he was that way when he went in. He went into a farm camp, which was a juvenile prison back then. He used to have to help around a farm out in Joliet. And he'd done a year and a half, and he came out. He was worse than when he went in. And he came out with this extreme stress and went back to the alcohol and the drinking. And he used to cry wolf all the time that he was going to do it. He was tired. He wasn't going back to jail. He wasn't going back to, prison. And it just so happened that one night we thought it was another cry wolf, and he actually done it.
Okay, that had to be amazingly hurtful for everybody.
It was.
Maybe not a surprise, totally, but that doesn't, the pain was still the same.
It was there. It was there. My mom took the brunt of the blame for it. She, I think she took that to her grave. Because she was the last one to talk to him on the phone. And, it kind of, even though we were a very close-knit family, that kind of started separating us.
We get into the blame game and even blaming ourselves, and that moves us, isolates us.
Yeah, exactly. And she needed a break, and so we ended up separating. And my brother went to the Marines at the age of 19, my oldest brother, and after his funeral. And my sister and I went to Canada for a year so that my mom could try and get her head together.
Did you have family there that you lived with? Or were you on
Mom
your
is
own?
Canadian.
Uh-huh.
I didn't mention, my dad was from here, but on my birth certificate it says the Netherlands, and my mom was from Canada.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. That explains that.
Yeah.
Okay. Move on into your 20s, your 30s, that kind of era, and tell us about life.
Well, after moving out and getting married, by that time I've tried getting into rehabilitations maybe 2 or 3 times. Never really done it for myself. I had always done it for my family or for my girlfriend or my ex-wife. It was always for somebody else. It was never for myself. I just wanted to satisfy them, and I would go in and act like, I would go through the motions, and it'll last till I get a certificate or something at 6 months or something like that. And I get out and I do the same thing over, and that repeated itself. It was doing the same thing, expecting different result routine, and just kept hitting that brick wall. And in my 20s, I end up having my first, Sean was born, Sean Jr., and I wasn't ready, and I pretty much wasn't around for him. I just kept doing my own thing out there in the streets. I would hold jobs here and there, but never for long.
Hard to commit.
Yeah, my commitment was horrible.
Yeah.
There was no commitment, to be honest with you. So that continued on in my 20s and up into my 30s.
The drinking continued with that, yes?
And I would quit, and I would start back, and I would quit. I never had a length of sobriety, though. I had never worked a program. I've always been in programs.
Say that again for the folks who might not catch that little bit of difference there that makes all the difference.
Yeah, I've been in programs. I've never worked a program.
Wow, I hope you heard that. He had been in programs, he had never worked them. And it's just like showing up but not participating. So important fact there.
That is a very important fact. When it comes to recovery, you can put the skates on and skate straight through it, and you can fool everyone. But the best verse I always have stuck, the best verse in my head is "To thine self be true."
Yes,
You know,
yes. You can't fool yourself.
You
as
can't
hard
fool
as
yourself.
You may try.
Yeah.
The smile may fool the world, but
Exactly.
you know the pain behind the smile.
Exactly.
The tragedies that have gone with it. So there you are in your 20s, where the 30s pretty much a repeat as far as behaviors and actions.
That was a repeat. Married twice. Lost both of my marriages due to it. Not knowing how to be a family man, a father. Left. I've always left when my kids, were no older than 2. My alcoholism has always taken the best of me, and whatever I put in front of that is going to disappear anyway. And my families were always first, and I would leave, and I didn't know what a family was all about, because I've always searched that when I was a kid. I always looked for that family, so I didn't know, now my mom loved us. She kept us in the home. But she couldn't do both at the same time.
She did what she could
She had
do
to do
under
what she
the
had to-
circumstances. No way can I even have a negative thought toward her.
Exactly.
To be able to accomplish what she did under the conditions, pretty phenomenal lady. Okay.
She was very strong, right to her last day. And, I didn't know the meaning of being a father.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, you hadn't had that model.
and he had a great, his hobby was children. So I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
gotcha.
I have 19 brothers and sisters.
Say that
4
again.
19 brothers and sisters, 4 from my mom, and I just I didn't know how to stay home. When it came time for that, I wanted to be out doing something.
Yes.
And they lost both of my families, and it led me right back to my alcoholism and the continuance, and that led me to prison.
How long?
And finally in 2004, 2005, I just got into some real trouble, and I didn't get out of prison in 2010.
Okay, so
2011.
like 5-6 years. Okay.
If you put all the time together, I've given the state approximately 10 years of my life.
Uh-huh.
And it was just me trying to grow up. It wasn't that I was out there, maybe, killing or anything. It was because I was just trying to grow up and just trying to have things that I never had before. But I was going about it the wrong way.
Yes.
And through all that, I never put the bottle down. So if I would sit here and say, I can honestly say, 30 years of my life, 30 to 32 years of my life I've had the bottle in my hand.
You consumed the drink, and the drink consumed you. Yes. All right. Let's go to move us towards your recovery. I remember it was like September 6th of 19, yes, that you started your sober journey.
It was.
All right. Hit us with that time frame and move us up to today.
Yeah, I love it. September 6th of 2019 was the last time I went to jail, and that was my last drink. I went, and they were going to send me back to prison, and I just let them know that, hey, when I get out, I'll still be an alcoholic. By that time, I've been in and out of jail 8-9 times in front of the same judge. I was on, different warrants and public intoxes, and so they gave me a chance, and they sent me out to they found a place out here called the House of Hope, and this is the first time. I'd never been to Anderson. So in my head, I'm picturing I'm being in the middle of a cornfield in this big brick building, and I can't run nowhere. I can't run east, can't run west. So, but I wanted to give it a try. My mom had been on her deathbed for almost 9 years, and I needed to do something. I made up every excuse in the world not to go see her because I knew I would have to stop drinking. At that time, I had been on the streets for 8.5 years, homeless, and I needed a change. And you'll probably never hear me say this, but that was the first time I'll ever say I was glad I was arrested. It changed my life.
God gets our attention, not always in the ways we'd like for him to, but he's going to get it.
He really does. That was nothing but my higher power through my, even through my hardest times, he watched over me. And even though he couldn't get my attention then, he knew where he wanted me, because I went way of getting out of prison, going to California, opening up a barbershop, being brought back here for child support, being held here on probation, becoming homeless for over 8 years, and coming from there and then coming to Anderson that I'd never been before in my life, to a recovery home where I started a new life. I went that whole 8 years and I did not want to go see my mom in California because I knew I would have to stop doing what I was doing, and I wasn't ready to stop. So he had to get my attention somehow, and he got it that way. And when he got it that way, I stayed in jail for almost five months, and they gave me the chance to come out to recovery, and they brought me out here on January the 7th of 2020, and January 17th of 2020, and my mom passed January 16th of 2020. When I got to the recovery home, they told me to call home, and I had just walked in the door, and the director told me to call home, and I called home, and they told me she passed.
Okay.
So, next time I seen her, it was in an urn. But to this day, everything I do, it's not only for, it's for my higher power, it's for myself, but it's also for her.
You know what? You were talking earlier about how rehab didn't work because you were doing it for others. You didn't get into doing the program. You were just in the program. But a mom's love has a way of staying with us far beyond the grave or the urn.
It does.
It can be that incentive because we still strive to make her proud. And you're getting there. You're doing it with those changes. Tell us more about recovery.
Recovery, it is about doing it. Like I said, I've been in many of them. I was never doing it for myself, and it sounds like a glory story of, when I sat there at her funeral and everything ran through my head and we buried her on top of my brother as she wished. I just made that last promise that this is it. She always had this thing in her head. She kept telling me that you're going to be a pastor or a drug counselor one day. I kid you not, true story. And I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be a pastor or a drug counselor.
Last on your list, first on hers.
Yes. And to this day, I think back on that, and I just, I'm gonna get as close as I can. I ain't gonna say I'm gonna be 100% a pastor or a counselor, but I tell you, I'll get as close as I can.
Tell the folks what you're doing now in life, because this is certainly a step in both of those directions.
It is. Within this 3.5 years, I've been a manager of recovery home. Now I am I'm a men's coordinator for the Christian Center. I have never seen myself working for any type of I've taken peer recovery coaching classes. I've taken ethic classes. I have certificates in those. I work for Turning Point in Madison County. I wrap around referral service for recovery. I do suicide walks. I do multiple walks for addictions and awareness. And most of all, I give back what was so freely given to me today. And that comes from the steps, though. That comes from actually working the steps and not just reciting them. I can recite a big book, but to work one is to actually sit down and go through each and every page and take it apart, go through each and every step and take it apart, and do the things, take the suggestions that I used to hear, just let go through one ear and out the other. Now I take them and I
You're
take
living
what I
it.
need. Yes.
And it's living in you, obviously. Folks, a little bit ago when I asked Sean to share with us about his recovery, his entire countenance changed. He smiled, he's laughed, but you could see it in every fiber of his visible being. It was like, yeah, man, let's talk about recovery. And we don't talk about the past to embellish it, to celebrate it, but we've got to share it to let you know where God's brought us, where Christ has taken us. And obviously, Sean has shared that. Sean, I have a final question for you. The title of our podcast, Faith in Your Recovery. What do those 4 words mean to Sean Harris?
Believing is something that I never thought that can be done. And to have faith in something is to believe in it. So faith in recovery is to believing in my recovery, to believe that I can do this, to have faith in is to know that I can do this,
And you're doing it.
And I'm doing it. And it's not something I'm going to graduate from. I have to do it every day. And I have to have that faith in my higher power that, I know I can do this. And he gives me that power.
Amen. Amen. It's that confidence. Well, folks, wow. Thank you, Sean. It's been a treat. It's been very meaningful. We just want to remind you, as we so often do at Faith in Your Recovery, we believe recovery is like a rainbow. Nobody witnesses one without sharing it with somebody else. You cannot find recovery, experience recovery, and keep it to yourself. You have to share it. Sean's been willing to do that, and for that we give God thanks. Sean, thanks. Go ahead, subscribe, like, and share to Faith in Your Recovery. This is Randy Davis. God bless. Amen.